Magalofa Layatu, I'm Soraya Mangawa, and this is our news bulletin for tonight. Leading our news tonight, the government announced on Tuesday this week that there are 3 new cases of COVID-19 detected at the border, and 5 of the positive cases from last week have completed their isolation period and are considered recovered. There are currently 8 active cases of COVID-19 on the island with no community transmission, while the island remains on alert level yellow. Here's more on this story. According to a government press release, one of the new cases was detected amongst a group of 64 passengers who arrived on Monday this week after day 1 testing was held on Tuesday. The 2 other cases were household contacts of the first positive cases that arrived on the first quarantine-free travel flight last week and were detected on their day 7 testing held on Tuesday. The 2 positive household contacts have been in isolation since day 1 testing last Tuesday and have not been in the community. The island now has a total of 8 active cases of COVID-19 and 15 recovered cases. Close contacts from the newly announced cases are in isolation per NIUE's strict COVID-19 protocols. The household close contacts of the new case will isolate for a minimum of 7 days per NIUE's COVID protocols. There are no new locations of interest. The island remains on COVID alert level yellow, as there are no community cases. Day-free testing was held earlier today. Health and government officials would like to remind all residents of Niue that, along with wearing a mask and to use RockSafe for contact tracing, follow the health and safety guidelines and refer to the COVID-19 website for daily updates. Less than 3 weeks away from the Birmingham 2022 Commonwealth Games begins, but whether or not Niue will have a lawn bowls squad in the team is still being disputed in the Niue High Court. BCN News is aware of the ex parte application before the Niue High Court seeking an injunction prohibiting Nisca from sending a Niue lawn bowls team to the Birmingham Commonwealth Games. Esther Bavihi reports.
The ex parte application is seeking an injunction to prohibit Nisca from sending the Niue Lawn Bowls team to the Commonwealth Games. The application claims that Nisca President Mauru Talangi and officials failed to comply with the directions and the decision of Chief Justice Coxhead, instructing President of Niue Lawn Bowls Des Hipa and Nisca President Mauru Talangi to meet to decide on a mutually agreed upon lawn bowls team. According to the application, the Nisca President Mauru Talangi chose not to comply with the directions of the judge to request the Commonwealth Games Federation to reopen the portal for a properly selected team agreed to by both parties. An ex parte application, usually in urgent matters before the court, can be conducted without notice of other parties affected by the proceedings or in the absence of said parties. Attempts to seek comments from Mr. Talangi and the Niue team chef de mission Tony Edwards have been unsuccessful, as Nisca officials remain deafeningly silent. BCN News cited, though, email correspondence from Tony Edwards to Des Hipa, saying that Nisca will be appealing the Niue High Court decision of June 30th, which ruled that the selection of the Nisca Lawn Bowls team for the Commonwealth Games null and void. If the latest ex parte application by Niue Lawn Bowls for an injunction is successful, then there will be no Lawn Bowls squad in the Niue team to the Birmingham Games, scheduled to depart the island on Monday next week. Without the Lawn Bowls contingent, there will only be 5 athletes in Team Niue, 4 boxers and 1 weightlifter. Team Niue will have 11 officials. The 5 athletes are all male and all based overseas. The 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham will begin on the 28th of July.
A team from the New Zealand Medical Assistance Team arrived on the island along with supplies on the New Zealand Defence Force C-130 Hercules on Tuesday this week. The team will be here on the island for 2 weeks and will be working closely with the Niue Health Department to help support the island's health response to COVID-19. Here's more on this story. The team from the New Zealand Medical Assistance Team consists of 3 doctors, 3 nurses, and 2 supporting logisticians from the Fire and Emergency New Zealand, who will be assisting with Niue's health response to COVID-19 following the opening of the border to quarantine-free travel last week. Team mission leader Martin Butte spoke with BCN News yesterday afternoon, who will be working closely with the Niue health team.
The current health team have been working exceptionally hard for a long period of time, and this will enable some of them to get a bit of a respite from that stage, but also to be able to work with them to do extra SOPs around how and processes of how it could be managed. It's fine-tuning, I suppose, in that case. So it's a lot of the business as usual, but we might be some outreach to the community, and that might be in notifications on how to manage various things, understanding that it's unfortunately very new here into Niue.
Some of the team members have had experience in Pacific Island countries supporting their health systems with its COVID-19 response. Mission leader Martin Butte says that the experiences of both Niue's health departments and their team would enable them to learn from one another.
Primarily, it's supporting the existing health output, and I think there is as I say, we are very cognizant that they've been under the pump a long time, and for their general welfare, if we can give them some little stand-down time and also work to get some other processes and share our experiences. A lot of the people that are making up this team have also worked during the Cook Islands support and response there, and have a lot of Pacific Island experience. And obviously we've got our New Zealand experience of COVID, unfortunately, too. And so I think blending it, but we've equally got a lot to learn how it's done in Niue, because in fact the islands have always got something to teach us.
The team will be based at Niuefo Hospital and will be working on the island for the next 2 weeks. A much-needed generator was flown in on the New Zealand Defence Force Hercules on Tuesday this week. The generator is needed to help restore the island's power generation to normal after several power outages in the past weeks.
A well-orchestrated operation took place at the airport tarmac as the crew of the Hercules assembled the platform for the generator. In a multi-agency exercise, the generator was removed from the aircraft and uplifted by heavy machinery and transported to the Niue power station at Tuila. Near midday on Wednesday, there was another unscheduled power outage, understood to be the result of the team installing the new generator. BCN News will be speaking with Director of Utilities Clinton Chapman next week on the status of power generation on the island. Hopefully, with this new generator into the system, that the sudden and lengthy power outages will be a thing of the past.
Premier Dalton Tagilangi left the island on the New Zealand Defence Force C-130 Hercules on Tuesday this week after his Day 7 testing was cleared and was released from isolation. The Premier will be attending several meetings, including a meeting with the New Zealand Prime Minister. In his absence, Honourable Crossley Tatui is acting Premier.
The member from Alofi North, Honourable Vainga Tukuitonga, was voted in by the members of the Whanake Pule as acting Speaker on Monday this week. The appointment of the acting Speaker was necessary because Speaker Hima Douglas left the island on Monday last week with the Clerk to Assembly, Cherie Morris Tefatu, on official travel. One of the first tasks of acting Speaker Tukuitonga this week was to sign the warrants of appointment for the acting Premier Crossley Tatui and acting Minister Dion Taufitu, who will be responsible for Premier Tagilangi's portfolios until his return in August.
New Zealand, Australia, together with Pacific partners, were able to secure a new deal for fishing subsidies at the 12th World Trade Organization in Geneva last month. An historic deal that has been at the forefront of Pacific Island World Trade Organization members to address one of the major concerns of overfishing in the Pacific. Here's Esther Bavihi with more.
On June 17th at the 12th World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference, after a marathon 5-day negotiations, a major Pacific regional outcome was reached with a new agreement on fishery subsidies following negotiations facilitated by New Zealand's Minister for Trade and Export, Damien O'Connor. The agreement includes important prohibitions on subsidies related to illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing, subsidies regarding overfished stocks and subsidies provided to fishing taking place on the unregulated high seas. Fisheries subsidies damage fish stocks, undermine the economic viability of small-scale producers and jeopardize the livelihoods and food security of communities like those in the Pacific. Pacific Island countries present at the conference who worked in consultation with New Zealand and Australia include Fiji, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, Tonga and Vanuatu. These are the Pacific Islands who are members of the World Trade Organization. Niue is not a member of the WTO. Niue's Minister for Natural Resources, Honourable Esa Monainu, said that this is an important development and one that we have been working through with our fisheries colleagues in the Pacific to ensure sustainability of the key fish stocks, especially high migratory fish stocks. Australia's High Commissioner to Niue, Her Excellency Louise Allerton, added that this treaty demonstrates what Australia and our Pacific family can achieve by working together on the international stage. Although not a member of the World Trade Organization, we know Niue cares deeply about their ocean.
Following the opening of borders with quarantine-free travel flights beginning last week, some of the returning local residents are being extra cautious and volunteering to self-isolate for the first 3 days, a duty to protect family, communities and the nation from the spread of COVID-19. Here's more on this story. As quarantine-free travel flights commence for the island, there is growing concern amongst locals for transmission of COVID-19 in the communities. However, some of the flights include returning local residents who are aware of these concerns. One of them included Chief Executive Officer of Chamber of Commerce and owner for Rockback Bakery, Catherine Babani, who arrived on Monday's flight this week. Catherine shared with BCN News how she and her family prepared to isolate themselves until day 1 and day 3 tests were completed. The decision was simple, really, to just help mitigate the chances of COVID in the community. And also, it's a situation that we have to learn to live in the new norm. On arrival, we didn't get to kiss and hug. It was masked hellos and elbow greets. Spraying and sanitizing and masking is our norm until day 3 tests are done. It's just being responsible. No one wants to get COVID or be the one to share it. Health and safety of all is prioritized over the economics of business. Mrs. Babani says that the bakery will still continue to provide for shops, but the canteen will not be opened until Friday, tomorrow at Niue High School. While some of the returning local residents are doing their part, there is careful reminder from communities and important facilities for incoming passengers on the island. In a recent Facebook post, Niue Primary School Principal Carol Edwards informed the public of the school's new guidelines, stating, "If someone from your household comes off the weekly flights, please do not send your children to school. They need to stay home until the person who came off the flight returns a negative test after day 3. Kiwi Bank at the Commercial Centre has also set its own health and safety guidelines where customers need to adhere to wearing masks at all times, otherwise no entry, only a certain number of customers inside the bank at any one time, and the bank now has PayWave available for contactless use. A lot of stores and important facilities have also applied the no mask, no entry policy to use the hand sanitizers provided and social distance. Chief of Police Tim Wilson confirmed last week that passengers who arrive on the island must follow government and health protocols and wear a mask when arriving off the plane. A $50 fine will be charged to those who do not adhere to these protocols. And that is our news bulletin for tonight. Do join us again next Tuesday for our Wangahau Niue Bulletin with Esther Bavihi. Until then, wishing you all a safe weekend and to continue to stay safe and be happy. Kia munuina.